Thanks for plugging in and rethinking the dollar. Click the subscribe button below this video for more great interviews to come. Enjoy my conversation today with Chris Marchese from the Morgan Report, co-author of the Silver Manifesto. Thanks.
Welcome to Rethinking the Dollar. Today I'm excited to have my guest Christopher Marchese here with me, author or co-author rather of the Silver Manifesto. And Christopher is the equity and economics analyst for the Morgan Report. He has worked for Veshni Capital as a portfolio strategist, as well as Morgan Stanley as a research and equities analyst. Has a formal education in finance and accounting. He has published over 100 articles on economics, mining, and investing. And so I wanted to welcome you to the show, Chris. Welcome to Rethinking the Dollar.
Great to hear it, Mike.
All right. I appreciate you taking time to sit down with me. I've been following some of your videos recently. It seems like you guys are very busy, being that the book just newly released the last couple of weeks or so. So I appreciate you, sitting down with me, and also had a chance to go through it. And man, you guys packed it full of history, graphs, charts, and everything like that. So you guys did a great job. Can clearly tell you you did your research with that.
Thank you. Yeah. It was 9 months in the making. So
yeah, that's good. Okay, well, I want to get right into some questions. I got a long list of questions, man. A lot of things is going on, and I want to see how silver is involved in that. So off rip, what comes to mind when you hear the words rethinking the dollar?
When what comes to mind when you hear that, or really any other fiat currency at any time, is really, it's kind of indicative that that paper money system is nearing an end.
Yeah.
And that's again the case here.
Right, understandable. Now, when it comes to monetary education, monetary literacy, here with the rethinking the dollar concept, my goal is basically to reach out to those that are not informed as to what's going on globally, and those who actually are not probably more finance savvy. And so when it comes to monetary education, why do you think it's more so important today in this day and era, prior to or apart from probably years and years ago?
That's because this is the first time the world has been on. So it's on a global fiat monetary system, and that began with the dollar finally, with the U.S. going to it when Nixon closed the gold window in '71. And it took a while. The U.S. has been able to last a while longer than other smaller countries, say Zimbabwe, when they blew up.
Mm-hmm.
And that sort of, because they've been the world's reserve currency. But as you and I know, that's has been slowly changing over the past 5 years.
Right. It has been.
And by the end of the decade, if the dollar's still around, it definitely they'll have different reserve currency, if any.
Right. So I like how you mentioned how if the dollar is still around, and so definitely going to tie that into with the book, the Silver Manifesto. But yet, last question on the education side. Why do you think that the whole idea of the dollar or being depegged from gold in 1971 and things like that isn't a topic in the school system nowadays or ever?
So under a 100% gold or silver or any commodity monetary system, the government can't inflate the supply of money and credit, and therefore can abuse that fact and achieve, in a democracy, their objectives they have when they go into office.
Mm-hmm.
So I think because all government accredited schools are, you really need to be in a government accredited school to get your name out there today and become, one of the elite schools, or even just mentioned, really.
Right.
Is you need to be government accredited, and that's not taught in modern day academia. I was a econ major, finished all the classes and everything in undergraduate, and then, just changed my major. It was a complete waste of my time. But,
so you were actually in school, in your primary, your major was economics. And so in that what 4 or 5, I studied business. I did 5 years, do this for sports type of thing. But yet in that time frame there in economics, in your studies, how much was actually dedicated towards like global monetary history, relating to metals and, you know, the stock market, bonds, trade, all those assets that, you know, the world is pretty much surrounded with now. Was any detailed studying like that in school for you?
Yeah, bond and stock analysis, but no mention of the metals whatsoever.
Right. So totally not included in the education system.
Yeah, that's basically the point. And so, I mean, I finished all my classes quickly my sophomore year. So I was able, luckily I was able to switch to a finance major.
Yeah.
And graduate on time.
Yeah,
so
that's good, my man. All right, so Silver Manifesto. You're a part of the Morgan Report. You're an analyst now. You're into mining, things like that. So I guess, how did that come about? How did you get into that line of work from finance and accounting, and what kind of, you know, fueled your fire to go that direction?
Well, you know, I learned Austrian economics from the Mises Institute while I was in college because, you know, I took a money and banking class in economics, and you know, everyone acted like it was okay and ethical to create money out of thin air. And so I wanted to look for, you know, something legitimate. That's obviously not the way to prosperity. So I started studying that, and so I got interested in the precious metals, but, you know, I was a college kid, didn't have all that much money. But I did have some in 2007 when I started working at Morgan Stanley, and I was able to look at the financial companies in depth. So I caught the meltdown before, and so after that, you know, after that I had a pretty decent amount of money and was able to go into the precious metals, and because that's where Austrian economics tells you to go, and I've been there ever since. It's just a really fascination with economics and the underlying metal. Silver, especially because of its vast industrial uses. You know, it's really just kind of an infant metal in terms that, you know, it's the best conductor of heat and electricity of any metal. And it was only following the tech revolution, so basically the early 2000s, that silver really began to be used in industry, and other than photography, which is, you know, such a small part today. And, you know, the future's just blue sky potential with silver in industry, and along with the monetary component, just, you know, there's nothing like it out there.
Right. So that was going to lead me to my next question, because my question is the Silver Manifesto. And so, like, what, you know, beyond the fact that you listed some of the monetary aspects as well as the industrial aspects. So what actually inspired, you know, the title Silver Manifesto? Where did that come from?
We really wanted it. I co-authored it with David Morgan, the silver guru, and you know, we really just wanted it to be all-encompassing. You know, the ultimate treatise on silver. So we provided, as you saw, so we did a monetary history. Then we went into the supply and demand dynamics. Then we went into the economics, which was, you know, the most difficult part to write. And then the investment side. And you know, I think we achieved our goal. We've gotten great reviews. For the 2+ months it's been out. And yeah, you know, that was, we feel like we accomplished what we wanted to do.
That's good. That's good. Now, as I was thumbing through it, you know, there's a lot of great historical information in there, which I wish was included, you know, the way you guys broke it down in the actual textbook itself. And so, you know, just to touch on chapter 1, monetary history of silver, you guys give an interesting time frame there of 3400 BC to 1792. And so I guess within that large frame of time there, can you explain a little bit, you know, money's or silver's origin as money during that time frame there?
Yeah, so 3400, as far back as we could go, it was around the advent of handwriting and correspondingly journal entries, and silver was used as a unit of account. So it was already considered money there. Then it goes through all these time periods, before coinage, modern day coinage of silver coins was made available, and that was around 600 BC. And then we go through, the biblical times. We provide, some interesting things like how much silver was Judas really paid to betray Jesus.
Really?
and through the Romans, and then the start of the fiat experiment with the Chinese.
Mm-hmm.
And we go through, all, their history. They experimented with it up until about the 1600s until they went back on a silver standard for a while. And then we also went through, explored Europe at that time, the rest of Asia, and then up through 1792 after the end of the Revolutionary War.
Yeah. Now, another thing is when it comes to coinage here in the United States of America, when the country was founded or when the Coinage Act of 1792 was written, you guys in chapter 2 give a lot of detailed information on various coin acts. Can you explain like what the Coin Act is, and are they still in effect now, and how did the whole Coinage Act aspect come about for establishing what would be considered money for the colonies when they first arrived here?
Okay, so first in the Constitution, Article 1, Section 10, it says, I don't know the word for word.
Okay, yeah.
But it's basically no state shall coin money, this and that, emit bills of credit, make anything but silver and gold for use in the payments of debts. And that hasn't been amended, so that is still legal according to the highest law in the land.
Right.
There was the Legal Tender Act in the 19th century that kind of made it okay for paper money to be used, but that had to go through several times. It was deemed unconstitutional, so they just stacked the courts, and eventually it got through.
Yeah.
And as far as the Silver Acts go, basically the Silver Act of 1792 defined a dollar as, I think it's 321.7 grains, probably off a little bit.
Yeah.
So, and the following Silver Acts, they kind of, basically they just changed the gold to silver ratio so that Gresham's law wouldn't come into effect, meaning that undervalued money would flow out to other countries and be hoarded.
Right. And
that only arises when you define a dollar as one of the metals, but then you peg the other metal to that defined in dollar terms. You need to let, in this case, gold float against silver.
Right.
When silver was defined as a dollar, and that would have prevented the end of the crime of '83 when silver was basically demonetized.
Yeah, interesting. Now I like how you actually, in my opinion, gave the definition of the dollar. Like the fact that in the Coinage Act of 1792 it mentions that the dollar is actually a weight. It's not a thing as we today would call it, like, or most people would refer to it as a piece of paper, but it's actually a weight, a specific weight that was crafted purposely by design, where nowadays, you say, ask someone what a dollar is, they'll give you a piece of paper with the $1 with the one on it. So just the fact that right there clearly defines a dollar as weight and not a actual thing itself is incredible. Now, after the whole silver, debacle of them manipulating the weights and ratios, we enter into the 20th century. And then the idea after the Legal Tender Act of, I think it's 1862 or so, we get into the whole fiat paper attached to a metal of some sort. Now, I guess in chapter 2, you guys reference the constitutionality of paper money. And so how does silver, gold, and things like that play into, how do they both operate and flow side by side in the beginning of the 20th century? How did that come about? Was it even flow?
Silver had already been demonetized in the late 80s, but wasn't officially I mean, not officially, but practically demonetized till the turn of the century.
Yeah.
And then in 1913, the founding of the Federal Reserve, they basically brought another monetary system in, but they kept inflating the supply of money and credit, thus leading to the Roaring '20s and then the Great Depression as a result of the Fed-induced boom.
Right.
And then Roosevelt devalued the dollar against gold in, I think it was 32. And then after World War II, we tried Bretton Woods, and then that was an utter failure. And then they just got rid of it altogether when Nixon closed the gold window.
Right.
If it's not 100% backed, it's pretty much worthless in terms of its purpose of, keeping inflation and credit expansion in check. Right. Ideally, so from 1895 over 1805, the purchasing power of the dollar doubled. And today that would be considered, deflation.
Right.
And, it's talked about as this horrid thing, but it's actually a great thing, and it's part of the market economy. Because, as we, with the advent of automobiles and then, the internet and related technologies, the cost of everything should be going down. So the purchasing power of our monetary unit should be going up. But instead, that's the opposite.
Right. Interesting. Now, along with all that took place as far as the Federal Reserve come into play and began passing Federal Reserve notes and diminishing United States notes, rather, so those two distinctions became prevalent at that time. How did silver and gold? Well, I mean, I know gold was outlawed for about 40 so years, but silver was still used. And get into the Coinage Act of 1965, when silver really lost its label as money, and how all that came into play.
Yeah, it used to be in coins, like quarters, and those were called Johnson slugs. That's what they're termed.
Really?
And after that, the silver was taken out of coins, and now it just became what it is now: lead, zinc,
nickel, and that's the thing. Like, just and part of me, educating my children on the subject of money, dealing with distinction between currency and money. I have my children. Whenever we have change in our pockets, I'm just telling them, look to the side. If you see brown around the side, it's pretty much junk. So, nothing you really want to save, and it's going to be worth anything down the line, per se. But if you come across something that's all silver all the way around, you might want to look at that, especially if it's pre-65. And so my children now are actually looking at change. So that's interesting, man. Now, let's get into more, like in Chapter 7. You referenced something about the origins of the coming currency crisis. Now, what is the currency crisis, and what's all that about?
The currency crisis that's coming, and it's not just in the U.S. It's going to be primarily in the Western world economies, because they all have the earmarkings of all other currency crises in the past, and that is they're laden with debt. And not, a lot of what's mostly referenced is solely gross federal debt to GDP and things like that. But you have to take everything into account. So gross federal debt, state municipal debt, household debt, corporate debt, and financial company debt.
Right.
And, for the U.S., that is, 280% of GDP. I forgot what the current numbers are.
Yeah.
But it's significantly higher than what's talked about today, which is about 100%.
Yeah. Wow.
And Japan, they're up over past 500%.
Really? That's wow. How does the economy survive when you're way beyond your ability to ever think about repaying?
Oh, they don't. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah. Man, that is something else. Debt, man. Like now we have 18 trillion plus. I mean, at what point, just with your opinion, would you say that the ceiling will reach our limit to pretend to borrow, or what number would you say is something that is ideal, but yet not over the top to where we'll have that crisis, as people say, before we reach that number? What number would you think that is?
See, I don't really think it's a number. It all has to do with sentiment and the psychology about everything.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it might only gross federal debt might only be at 22 trillion when everything falls apart, or it could literally be tomorrow. I mean, things can happen that fast. Everything's so fragile, and nothing would surprise me now.
Right.
I mean, we're in unprecedented territory, in terms of this never occurring, or this situation ever being, in existence throughout history. That, the world is the fiat monetary empire is on its last leg and will come crumbling down.
Right, on his last leg. Wow, that's powerful right there. Now, I guess with the Silver Manifesto, how does silver, why not gold? I mean, why silver? How does silver play in all this for your everyday middle class citizen? Just your everyday person here in the United States? Silver, it just clearly is way undervalued at its current price. And so, give me some silver type of explanation of how all this plays out.
Okay. Well, I mean, we like gold a lot too, so just want to make that clear. Yeah. But so if a collapse were to happen, say tomorrow, gold is still for world trade, and silver's for the everyday person used in everyday commerce. Gold it's too valuable in terms of even a 20th an ounce. That being $100 at today's depressed prices.
Right.
And silver also, why silver is because you should own it as an insurance policy along with gold because of that, and like I said before, the industrial aspect.
Right.
Because it makes it basically like a double-edged sword.
Right. Now, I've heard several commentators and experts, economists, mention insurance policy. I've realized that you can pretty much insure every single thing, any tangible asset whatsoever you can insure, apart from having the actual ability to insure your money itself. Like there's FDIC for your deposits in the bank, things like that, but yet actually insuring your currency with a precious metal, that concept, clearly goes over the head of a lot of people, because insurance for your money, my money's always going to be there. I have it in my pockets, and so most people have no clue about the need for insurance when it comes to that matter there. So,
well, it's outside the banking system, which is the only, fairly liquid, tangible object with intrinsic value that you can have. Stocks, I mean, unless you should have the paper certificates, or at least in part, because you don't know what's going to happen to the power grid.
Right.
Or, and it's just for the worst circumstance you can imagine. That's what it should be for. And even, most people say 10%. At these prices, you might as well go to 20. You can get it on the cheap. They're great. Silver especially is a great long-term investment, even if somehow miraculously, the dollar doesn't have issues.
Right. Yeah. Now, so for your say a single mom or someone who's on a limited budget, I mean, how would you go about, just put yourself in an example, limited budget, not much disposable cash. I mean, how would you go about just day by day, incrementally, once a check by 1 ounce, a gram, or whatever you can afford? What would be a game plan where you're not, you're well covered insurance wise? I mean, how do you gauge your, how much you need in coverage? Just like insurance policy.
That's all subjective.
Yeah.
But the more the better.
Yeah.
And, for those on a budget, there's this, for, this website has fairly good pricing. It's called Silver Saver. You can buy silver and gold and I think the other precious metals.
Right.
And basically what it does is debit your account every week or month, however you program it.
Mm-hmm.
And, that will automatically buy it for you. So that's a lot easier.
Mm-hmm.
And, you just make it, even if it's just a little bit of money.
Yeah.
And you add over time, it's still, it amounts to a lot over, say you started in 2010 and, you couldn't buy much,
Mm-hmm.
You've accumulated a lot over that time.
Yeah.
And so, that's how I would recommend going about that.
Right. Definitely. So it's better to have some than not to have some, basically. Any amount of metal that you have is better than not having any. So that clearly, is a good way to get started for those that might be interested in how to go about getting started and purchasing metal. Now, coming down the home stretch here, how, as far as the monetary education side of things, how would you encourage people to become more aware of what's going on and what books to read, what sites to go to, how to stay up to date with, there's a lot of things going on globally. How would you encourage someone who has no idea about anything monetary related to begin plugging into information?
I would recommend going to Mises.org, MISES.org,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a great resource. I mean, they taught me economics when I was in college,
Mm-hmm.
For free. It's a nonprofit. They do a wonderful job. And there's also books like even the Silver Manifesto, although, that might be a little too over the head in terms of the economics involved.
Yeah.
And so, but the Mises Institute has things for every level.
Yeah.
And everything's free, free online books, and a lot of resources. So that's definitely worth checking out.
Right. Well, Chris Marchese from the Morgan Report. I appreciate you taking time, my man. Definitely, that book is I'm excited to continue to dive into more of it because I love graphs, I love facts, I love being able to, just wrap my mind around stuff that I had no clue of prior to actually taking initiative to go learn for myself. So, one last thing, where can people get a copy of your book, and how can they stay in touch with you and connect with you and follow some of your work? I know you do articles and commentary, like things like that. How can people stay in touch with you?
Just, send it something to support at silver-investor.com,
Mm-hmm.
or even my personal email. I'll reply to that a lot. Chris at silver-investor.com.
Mm-hmm.
The Morgan Report website is themorganreport.com.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, if that's for subscribers, but we also have a free list with a lot of educational material.
Mm-hmm.
And the book is available at Amazon. The Kindle version just came out.
Oh, yeah.
And, an audio version will be out in a couple weeks.
Cool. Sounds good. Well, Chris, I appreciate you taking time. Look forward to hopefully reaching out to you again and getting more update as to how the book is doing, and hopefully get a chance to get Mr. Morgan on here as well. Love to get his intake here, him being the guru. And so, but definitely thank you for taking time, and look forward to staying in touch with you and Mr. Morgan, and helping spread the word about the importance of precious metals in the hands of those while they're still on the cheap.
And my pleasure.
Yes, thanks for joining me.
Thanks.
That concludes my interview with Chris Marchese from the Morgan Report. I want to encourage you to get a copy of his latest book, The Silver Manifesto, and also visit Rethinking the Dollar, where you have a chance to test your money IQ, as well as grab a copy of my free ebook, The Simplicity of Money, and also give me a thumbs up on Facebook. Look forward to seeing you the next time. Bye.